Today I'm going to go over exactly what I would do if I were buying a house in Canada today and what I would avoid like the plague. Can we make plague jokes with COVID so recent in our history? Yeah, I know. My name is Ben Robitaille. I'm a real estate agent in Simcoe County and Muskoka. And today I'm going to walk you through the strategy that I would personally use if I was about to go out and buy a house today. Let's dive right into it. So the very first thing I would do is get my finances in order. Now, this is a very broad topic, so I'm going to break it down into 4 sections. Number 1 is know how much you have for a down payment and deposit. Now, these are 2 different things in real estate. So a down payment is the total amount of money you're going to put down towards the purchase of the house. However, when you actually make the offer, you do have to give a certain amount of that as a deposit once the offer is accepted. And that deposit amount varies from market to market. I know in the Toronto area, most sellers expect a 5% deposit, whereas in our market, 2 to 3% is usually acceptable. And I know there's some markets in Northern Ontario that still do $500 or $1,000 deposits. So let me break this down in an example. Let's say I have $50,000 to put down on a $500,000 house. I go make my offer for $500,000. I get it accepted, but I've offered a $20,000 deposit. The day the offer is accepted, I will transfer over that $20,000 to the listing brokerage's account where it will sit in trust until closing day and be added to my remaining $30,000 down on the day the house actually becomes mine. With me so far? So the reason it's important to know the difference is because a portion of your down payment has to be readily accessible when you go to make an offer on a house. Number 2 is land transfer tax. There is a provincial in Ontario land transfer tax, and that's calculated as a portion of the sale price that scales depending on the price. If you type in land transfer tax calculator into Google, you should be able to find one fairly easily. Put in your purchase price, it'll spit you out an amount. Now, it's important to note here that if you live within the city limits of Toronto, that there's also a municipal land transfer tax equal to the same amount as the provincial land transfer tax. So that means you're paying double the amount of land transfer tax. Have I said land transfer tax enough? If you're a first-time buyer, you also get a rebate on your land transfer tax. So make sure that you speak with your lawyer come closing time to make sure you're paying the correct amount of land transfer tax. There are other closing costs to keep in mind as well, such as hiring said lawyer. Now, there are great options both online and locally. Prices vary quite a bit, so make sure you speak to your realtor about some options in your area. Home inspectors, movers, and the occasional late night pizza that comes with moving houses. Still within finances, look at getting a mortgage pre-approval. Now, you can do this through your bank or through a mortgage broker. I personally prefer mortgage brokers because they can shop around to different banks and offer different products. Whereas when you go to your bank, they're only going to offer you the products of that bank. Now, you can shop these around too. Talk to 1, 2, 3 mortgage brokers. Talk to your bank as well to see what fits best for you. But it's important for them to take a look at your finances, see what you have saved, and then give you a pre-approval. So a certain amount that you would be able to go and comfortably spend on a home by their calculations. Now, with that pre-approval, hopefully you'll also be getting a ballpark idea of the amount of your mortgage payment. Now, just because you're pre-approved for $1 million doesn't necessarily mean you need to go out and spend $1 million if that payment is going to be more than you're comfortable carrying every single month. So it's important to have all that information before we even think about looking at a house, let alone making an offer. Which brings me to my 4th point under finances is set a budget. Have an idea of what utility costs are, property tax costs are, your mortgage payment, everything that comes along with owning a house, the maintenance, the wear and tear, all the necessary repairs you want to do. It's important to have that spelled out before you even make the offer. There's nothing worse than buying a house and having all these surprises hit you after you're already in there. Now, what I would avoid for the financial section of this video is using online mortgage calculators. They're great to give you a ballpark idea of how things will end up at a given price point, but it doesn't take into account your income, your debt, everything that plays a factor into what you'll get pre-approved for. The best source of information here is either going to your bank or mortgage broker, and best case in that situation is you speak to many of them. That was a long section, but let's get into number 2, which is choosing a realtor. Now, of course, I have a little bit of bias here as a realtor, but I'm going to try and keep this as objective as possible. Most of the time when sellers sell their houses, they'll bring in not one agent, but maybe 2 or 3 to interview, see what their process is, and then from there select one. And as a buyer, you are very much entitled to do the same thing. Interview 2 or 3 of them because you're going to spend a lot of time with this person, and you want to make sure that you don't dread hanging out with them. Beyond whether or not they have a good personality, you want to make sure they also have a good track record. So read Google reviews. If you have friends who have used them, make sure you talk to them, ask them what their experience was like and whether or not that fits with what you're looking to get out of your realtor experience. And if it isn't, that's okay. Personally, I'd much rather have a client sit down with me, have a chat about what I can offer them, find out what their needs and wants are and how I can service that, and have them let me know that they've gone in another direction because the fit just wasn't there. There are other ways you can interview agents in a roundabout way. You can go to some open houses, meet agents there, and they might contact you relentlessly after you've gone to the open house, so just be prepared for that. Or if there's listings that are of interest to you, you can reach out to that listing agent directly to view the house. But again, they're going to ask whether or not you're working with a realtor. And if you say no, they are going to contact you relentlessly. I know because I also do it a little bit. Sorry. But what I would avoid in this section is using your aunt's boyfriend's cousin just because they just got their real estate license and you kind of know them. This is a big purchase. You want to be comfortable with everything. You want to be comfortable with the whole process. And if your realtor isn't making that clear for you, then my opinion is you should be working with somebody who does. Hopefully that's me if you're in my area, but if not, I understand as well. The next thing I would learn about is how to prepare your offer. Now, your realtor is going to do most of this, but it's important to have a good understanding so you don't just show up, sign the paperwork, and be on your way. You need to know what you're signing. In Ontario, there's 2 sets of paperwork that we really need to know about. That is the buyer representation paperwork and the actual offer paperwork. Now, in our market, what is common is we'll sign what's called a buyer representation agreement, which is a sheet of paper that allows me to represent you as a client. It's got conditions in there on what the expectations are, what your rights as a consumer are, and what my responsibilities as an agent are. Now, it's important to go through them and actually know what those are. I could get into them here, but that's way too long, and I think it's a topic for maybe another video. But we also have the RECO Guide, which is a document the Real Estate Council of Ontario put out outlining what consumers' rights and responsibilities are in the marketplace. It is a 12-page guide that we provide to all our clients and have to be signed in order to proceed with a transaction. Because when you sign it, you're acknowledging that you understand what your rights are under the current regulations that govern real estate trading in Ontario. Then you have the offer paperwork. So typically here in Ontario, there's 3.5 forms that we use. So there's a 1-sheet page that is called an offer summary, which is mostly just for record keeping for brokerages, where it says, hey, we have an offer, it's good for this long, it's got no price, it's got no nothing on it. It just basically shows that your offer exists. The second is a confirmation of cooperation, which is a form that outlines who is representing who in a real estate transaction and how compensation is being handled. Fairly straightforward, but also important to know when you're signing. And then the third form is the actual offer itself. Now, this has a Schedule A attached to it. Oftentimes there will be a Schedule B. That's why I say 3.5 forms, which is basically 2 sheets of paper at the end of the offer that outline more conditions of the sale. So the offer will outline things like the purchase price, the deposit amount, the closing date, what's included. Is the fridge included, stove included? Are they excluded? Are there any rental items? Is the hot water tank rented? Is there a rental air conditioner? All these items will be listed in that offer. Then when we get to Schedule A, we can put in conditions. So if we need a condition of getting a mortgage, we would put that condition in Schedule A. If we need a home inspection, I highly suggest both of these, by the way, but if you need that home inspection, we would put it in Schedule A. If you need a condition of a status certificate review because you're buying a condo, we would put that all in Schedule A. It's important to know which conditions you need, and your realtor should walk you through all of your options so that you're as protected as possible. If you find the house you like and you get to the offer and all of a sudden you're bombarded with all this information, it can be overwhelming. Imagine maybe some of you are overwhelmed just hearing all this information come out in this video here. So talk to your agent before you even get to the offer stage about what kind of conditions you would need. The Schedule B, which I'll touch on just lightly, is usually provided by the listing brokerage. It usually outlines what kind of trust account that your deposit gets held in, whether or not it can bear interest or not, the consent for the use of electronic signatures, which is a widely accepted practice in Ontario. And then usually there's a line or two about being able to advertise the property as sold. Each one is a little bit different, so make sure you go over each one each time you make an offer. Number 4, getting your offer accepted. So let's say you're the buyer, you've come to an agreement with the seller, the offer is accepted. Now you've got conditions to carry out. Don't just go Googling, what do I do? Your realtor should have all this information ready, accessible to make it as easy and as smooth as possible for you, the buyer. I know in our case, if you need a home inspection, we have a go-to home inspector that makes it very easy to book online. You can call them, they can walk you through all of your options so you can get a home inspection tailored to what suits your needs and what suits the needs of that property. You don't need a septic inspection if you're on a municipal sewer. And I know that the home inspector I recommend will recognize that and not charge you for a septic inspection if you have municipal sewer. There's also communication with your mortgage broker or bank to make sure that they approve the mortgage for that particular house, because when they give you a pre-approval, they are pre-approving you. When you actually make the purchase, what they're doing is they're looking at the house to make sure that the value for the house is there and they can actually loan money against that house. Any other conditions, your realtor should be able to walk you through how they work and what has to be done within certain time frames in order for you to move forward with the sale of that house. Finally, the last thing to do is worry about closing. So make sure that you are hiring a lawyer. Again, as a realtor, I do have plenty of local options. I have online options. I have options that are not necessarily local, depending on the budget and what your needs are. Important to book your movers, change your address, and do all the things that come along with actually moving. What I would avoid here is, and this could be controversial, so if you're a real estate agent, let me know in the comments if you like this or not, or what you prefer, is avoid getting gifts. I personally, as a realtor, I don't need a gift. If I've sold you a house and you're moving in, the best gift you can give me is honestly just a 5-star Google review, and let your friends and family know that you think I did a good job for you. If you did think I did a good job for you, I say avoid it. If you think differently, let me know. I'm curious to see what the people think here. But that's all I have for this video. I threw a lot of information out there, so if you have questions about any of it at all, in the description of this video, you can book a discovery call with me where we can chat for however long you need about anything real estate related that you might have questions about. Real estate is fun and exciting, but it can also be overwhelming, and that's why I try to take as much time as I need to walk you through the process so that you can be successful in your next real estate transaction. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.